Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a Western astrologer and twin flame channel, and this is a video about the Leo full moon taking place on February 1st at 5:08 p.m. You happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States. Definitely check a time zone converter for your local time. This will function as a part two to the Lightworker energy update for the twin flame divine counterpart and soulmate collective. Welcome. It's so great to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining me for another lunation. For everyone who has shared from the last video to this one, everyone who's liked, everyone who's new and subscribed, welcome. It's always an honor to be able to do this work for you and with you and walk through these energies together. Because, whoa, daddy, they are doing the most for all of us, including me. And I am just glad to know when I read your comments, like, I'm not alone in this. Oh my gosh. This energy is wild. In some really interesting ways. So I talk about all of that in a podcast that I did with Lauren of Master Your Mind, Business, and Life. Lauren Smith, definitely check out her episode with me that just aired. It is a 2026 energy update for Lightworkers and the Twin Flame Collective. I ground everything I say for twin flames in the context of what's happening for the greater light worker collective, because we are part of that group. We are not separate from it or having some different journey. We are having a journey alongside everyone who's part of that group. And it's important for you to understand how the energy is flowing. So you'll see me talk about a lot of the things that you can expect in the podcast, and you can find it over at mindbizlife.com, as well as on Spotify, Pandora, as well as on, where else did she say this was? She shared that it's wherever you can find podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, and other popular streaming services. And we talk about the changes that are going to be happening for the collective geopolitically, socioculturally, things we're already experiencing. But I approach it from astrology, what the planets are doing, why they're doing it, and how this is helping us all with our collective ascension process and moving us toward greater light, greater love, greater service, greater connection, and greater humanity with one another. I speak especially towards the end about what twin flames may expect in connection. And then I sprinkle a few things throughout so that you understand how your connection plays a part in this bigger concept around mission and purpose for all of us collectively. So definitely check that out. The link to mindbizlife.com for this special episode is below. And if you want to go deeper and know where things are headed, you'll definitely listen to that after this. I'm so excited that we got to do that together, Lauren. Thank you. All right, I'm going to dive in now to the twin flame lunar update for this Leo full moon. Second time's the charm. Realized I wasn't recording the first time I recorded this. Lost all that time, but I digress. Trusting that something brilliant was either needed to come out or something non-brilliant needed to be edited out. So here we go. Full moon in Leo, 13 degrees opposite the party over here in Aquarius. And we have a semi-sextile to Jupiter there in Cancer. We've got a trine to Ceres there in Aries, as well as the Chiron Eris conjunction that I've been talking about. We've got a sextile to the Shaman's asteroid, as well as, okay, I think that's it. Oh my gosh, it's so much energy here. This energy functions as a carryover from the new moon in Cancer. We all saw how intense that energy happened to play out on the world stage. This energy continues to bring the heat, in particular now because Mars and Pluto are now conjunct inside of Aquarius. They are being trined by Lilith, sorry, sextiled by Lilith. They are in loose, but still opposition to this particular full moon in Leo. So the heat continues. There's a lot of things that are going to still be being talked about, digested, integrated from that new moon in Cancer 2 weeks ago. There are also themes from that new moon in Cancer that aren't done yet. So, ripple effect, cause and effect, things that are going to show themselves as a direct result of things that happened at that new moon. So, if you had an intense time coming through that new moon in Cancer and you haven't listened to that lunar update, I strongly recommend that you do, especially if you had an intense time in connection. The planetary energies are bringing a lot of shadow energy through the divine feminine energetic fields for release at this time so that she can step into a higher vibration that holds the circuitry and the template for union connectivity, for the connection in totality. But this period does mark a particular type of purge in the divine feminine frequencies that can be a little intense. And so I'm encouraging all of us to walk through this energy knowing we have both divine masculine and divine feminine, and not look outward and point at a particular person as if they're holding all of the singularity of that frequency, because that's not true. As we move toward union energy, the energies are going to show themselves on both sides of the connection, and the easier that is for you to see, the more union energy you're going to be able to anchor in your thoughts, feelings, and ultimately behaviors with your counterpart. So let's get into it. Um, let's start with the divine feminine energy, Juno here. She is still conjunct to Pholus. She is sextile to Lilith in Sagittarius, sorry, semi-sextile. She is also semi-sextile here to Pluto and now Mars, joining Pluto inside of Aquarius. And basically the whole squad here, really, in Aquarius, if you use a large orb like I do. If you're an astrologer as well and you're like, why is she talking like that? It's because I've noticed everyone who subscribes to this channel is energetically sensitive. They feel energies before the majority of the sensitive collective does. They're astrologically attuned. And I've noticed that they can feel these energies up to 10 degrees earlier than the exact moments. So, yeah, she's semi sextile, the entire squad there in Aquarius. And what that means is that all of the tension in the energy in opposition to this new moon is directly hitting the divine feminine's energetic fields with no opportunity to back up or back out because Lilith is right behind her. If you haven't listened to the Lightworker Energy Update, I strongly recommend you do, especially if you had a tough time at the Cancer new moon. Okay. How we handle this energy can have significant long-term impacts in connection, given that the divine feminine energetic field is pulling templates from Juno, who is in the sign of establishment. That's Cancer, boundaries and structure and continuity of structures. In other words, behaviors, actions that you take at this time can set in motion or continue a very toxic cycle. It can also give you what you need to end one. Juno conjunct Pholus in Capricorn, that's Pholus here, highlights how attempts to impose structure on a connection right now can create unintended consequences. Pholus is linked to toxicity, accidents, and being harmed by being in the wrong place or up in another person's issue, wrong place at the wrong time, or caught up in somebody else's issues. Forcing direction, whether it is toward closure or toward connection, can introduce toxicity if it is driven by discomfort with uncertainty or a need to regulate the nervous system externally rather than facing vulnerability within. Meaning, this is the behavior that shows up when I feel so unsafe, dysregulated, fearful, or stimulated Try not to use the word triggered so much because it just got such a loaded word that means too many things to too many people. But if, let's just say I feel stimulated, I feel so stimulated, I need you to change. I need you to behave differently. I need you to see things my way. I need you to alter your behavior so that I can feel good again. Externalizing your nervous system regulation to somebody else's behavioral change can backfire in this energy. Linking it to their behavioral change in that way, or depending it and training it to their behavioral change, can backfire, in particular at this particular full moon. And it's because we've moved into a season post December where the counterparts are meant to be coming into new balanced alignment with the frequency of love externalized behaviorally and held by both counterparts to synchronize the alignment required for union to stabilize in the third dimension. That means I can't be codependent on you or the connection if I want the connection to deepen, if you're already in union, or stabilize if union is something you're looking for. I actually need to be sovereign, and so do you. Where one or both are outside of sovereignty, it is going to cause disharmony and mirroring until both come into sovereignty in order to foster the stabilization of union. Now I know why I wasn't able to record, why I accidentally didn't record the last one, but that was also intentional because the way I just said what I said was the way it needed to be said. Got it. Okay, so we have with Juno in this configuration, she is speaking to Pluto Vesta, which she was speaking to at the last lunation, the new moon in Cancer, but Mars has joined the party. And this brings a completely different frequency. What was just tension before, or the feeling of, I'm in my power, now feels a demand to act, to externalize, to behave. Mars is indicative of motion, action, activity. And so this is where the intensity, the physical chemistry, and the gravitational pull are so easy to fixate on. This could also be the problems and the power struggles in the bond can be so easy to fixate on. It makes it harder to see the bigger picture. Lilith in Sagittarius behind her by sextile creates a rigidity, an all or nothing mindset rooted in righteousness and control over truth. And this ultimately in the divine feminine energetic fields can have you or your counterpart or both of you feeling really boxed in, like there are no good decisions here, stuck between a rock and a hard place with limited flexibility, limited perspective, because you're so close to the problem. With a full moon energy like this one, again, hopefully you listen to that light worker energy update. None of us, divine feminine or divine masculine, take well to feeling boxed in or pressured. And now that Mars is in the mix, there's this intense impetus to take action that's starting to move through the energy to get out of situations where we feel boxed in. Now, this energy can be really constructive when responding to genuine harm or actions taken in bad faith. But instead, what often happens is this energy masks a real need to sit in some hyper vulnerability and explore what is the cost of shutting down in a moment of intensity. It asks us to really look at the old wounds and where they still need dressing and attention and love. It asks us to look at pride and ego, and where pride and ego have been a defining feature of any back and forth, hot and cold, in and out inside of connection. It asks us to look at fear and where we cling and grip or run and hide because our nervous systems are dysregulated in connection. What's easy to interpret as malice or someone intentionally causing harm, I'm going to be honest, with a full moon like this, it's more often unresolved wounds, both ours and theirs, interlocking. Think of two mountain goats. That is the animal symbol affiliated with the sign of Capricorn, locking horns. Okay. There is no single correct way to work with this energy. The right approach is going to be one that supports your personal growth without force. It's going to be one that honors both love and self sovereignty, connection, and personal accountability. Okay. So take that as you will. Went deeper in it at the twin flame lunar update at the last lunation. We see Juno also sextile to Haumea here in Scorpio. Now, Haumea is retrograde, and this retrograde for Haumea is in the same sign that Juno was retrograde and in shadow with this time last year. Juno's retrograde through Scorpio in the first several months of last year. She was in shadow, and then she was retrograde, then she came out and she was in post shadow. She lived in Scorpio for roughly 11 months. But that time period would have forced divine feminine energies to face, reconcile, and deal with scorpionic shadow themes such as trauma having to do with your reproductive organs, let's say SA. Um, it would have to do with reproductive health issues, so anything involving the reproductive health organs or the kidneys. It would have to do with any sacral chakra issues concerning creativity and generating and sourcing creativity from an authentic place within, as opposed to copying other people's work and reproducing it, or trying to source your creativity from burnout when what you really need is time to recover. Scorpio also deals with what we call other people's money in the zodiac. So this is credit, grants, loans, taxes, inheritances, lottery winnings, any sort of money in this capacity would have required dealing with on some level last year. Now Haumea is retrograde in the same sign that she was retrograde in. Haumea is our creation goddess, but when she's retrograde, she's not creating. When she's retrograding, she's reviewing creations. In this sextile wall, Juno is conjunct a symbol that deals with toxicity. Anything that's a holdover that didn't get dealt with last year through Juno's retrograde may see a resurgence, a part two, a needing to go deeper on the issue now that there's communication between Juno and Haumea. And this communication remains. Juno moves forward relatively quickly, but then she conjuncts Pluto and then speaks to Haumea again. And Pluto is the governing planet of Scorpio. And so this energetic here is calling for all of us to really deal with any toxic structures in our life in the arenas I just mentioned once and for all. Step into our power once and for all. And that really is one of the higher uses of this intensity energy here that I've mentioned, that I just spoke about with Lilith, Mars and Pluto, having the divine feminine energy in a corner. So where you may feel I've got to act, I've got to say something, I've got to do something with, to, for, about my counterpart, a higher level use of this energy for most people is actually going to go back to root level issues with Scorpio. Rather than waiting for your counterpart to step up and financially support you, there's a debt consolidation program with your name on it that's going to help you with your taxes. Rather than, and or instead of, like, just cutting your counterpart off from all sexual activity without you going to therapy at all to deal with the abuse, the trauma from childhood, this is the time to go to the therapy. Bring your counterpart with you, right? And I'm not saying if you need to take a break, don't take a break. Take the break, but also take accountability for your healing, right? Where there are, inheritance issues, deal with them. Where there are loan issues, credit issues, deal with those. This energy is saying, where are you looking for your counterpart to be for you what you have not been willing to be for yourself? The call to sovereignty with the full moon in the sign of the sovereign, that is Leo, is loud. Loud, 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 loud. It is necessary for you to start to carve out the structures required for your sovereignty and safety above and beyond the connection, inclusive of it, but not just that being the only place. And so that's a very specific message for very specific people in very specific circumstances. For the collective, what we're dealing with here on the whole is power. How do I use my power in ways that don't destroy the very thing that I'm trying to create, which is connection? Okay. So take that in whichever direction it resonates for you personally in your circumstance. You know your situation better than I ever could or will. So whatever didn't apply to you, don't force it. There's plenty of other people who needed to hear that the way I said it. Okay. So pattern breaking, huh? Yay! We're in for it. We also see Divine Feminine square to Ceres there inside of Aries, and that's a really good thing. This speaks to an ending and a completion tied to an identity. That's the Aries piece, to one of the frameworks that has been supporting how you define yourself, frameworks being the Capricorn piece. This ending was also active at the last lunation, and I'll acknowledge for anyone experiencing an active end to a pattern in connection, this energy ain't easy. Squares aren't. Squares make us feel like I want to, but I can't. My hands are tied. It's too difficult. It's too hard. There's too many moving parts to this. Okay. So there can be some internal resistance as you might be holding on to what feels familiar simply because it's known, it's easy, it's the way things have always been. The prevailing force of this full moon, and this is a forceful full moon, and the last new moon, the one in Cancer, which was also heavy-handed, is actively disrupting comfort zones, pressing us to release what no longer fits so that we can move into the next phase of our love lives. It's creating a demand for personal alignment, personal accountability, okay? Personal sovereignty. This is good. It's good. I like it. Okay. I like this a lot. Only you can discern which version of quote unquote comfort has become too costly to maintain in your divine feminine energy. It will look different depending upon whether you're in union or separation. And as I said at the last lunar update, there's no universal example that applies to everyone. This is where some honest self reflection or reflection with a coach who knows you, knows your history, can help bring clarity and direction. When in doubt, one thing that's always guided me in my connection and still guides me now is the action that I personally am taking, allowing me to feel like heart, mind, body, and spirit are all coherent, moving in the same direction? Or is the action that I'm taking causing me to feel split? My heart wants this, but my body wants that. My mind knows this, but, my emotions feel that. Anything that causes decoherence means that I'm stepping out of alignment with love. Anything that facilitates coherence means that I'm staying in alignment with love. Okay. And so you will know what that is for you. It's going to be different for everyone. Okay. So I left you with some powerful questions for reflection at the last lunar update for Twin Flames. If you haven't watched that, as I talked about this same energy, because it's still quite active here, I left you with some powerful questions for reflection. If you're mostly a self-reflection person for journaling or contemplation, you can use the one I just provided as well, if you'd like to go deeper. Now, for some, the answer is already very clear. You have been circling the same territory for years without committing to setting up camp, right? And this goes above and beyond like, hey, we've been in and out of each other's lives. Why don't we just give it a shot? I'm also talking to those of you who you and your counterpart have moved in and out of living together for years. And it's like, okay, we need to pick a direction that creates coherence for us individually and the bond. And that may not be what you think it is. So there could be some grief in that. Like, you know what? We actually just do better as a couple in our bond when we're not living together. For some of you, that might be the case. Something unique, something different. The stellium in Aquarius actually speaks to that. Aquarius is the unique, it is the different, it's the unconventional. For others of you, it could be, hey, we've been playing chicken about, who's going to say I love you first, or we've been playing chicken about who's going to get divorced first because we have been in toxic love triangles for years where four people aren't happy. It is going to be different for different people, right? So know your connection and just pay attention to what surfaced last new moon, themes that need to get handled at this new moon. For others of you, it's like, okay, we both know one of us is dealing with a health challenge and we've been avoiding it and trying not to deal with it and putting band-aids on it and coping with it. It's time for us to sit down with the doctor and find out what our options are. These sorts of things. Okay. Um, this energy in the divine feminine field for both parties in a connection, this energy is signaling, hey, it's time for us to restructure things for alignment. And that's a good thing, even if it's an uncomfortable thing for right now. But trying to stay in the old system, the old way of dealing with your health, dealing with your housing, dealing with your money, dealing with your identity, trying to go back to the way it has been, it's not going to work. You're going to find that that gets real toxic real quick with Juno speaking to the divine feminine in the way that he is. Okay. So there is that. We also see a sextile to Nessus for Juno. This energy can play out in one of two ways, depending upon whether you're operating in the preceding energies in shadow or light. Now, it can make our search for truths all that more ardent. We can be all that more committed to getting to the bottom of our issues and the things that we need to deal with. And for others, it's going to intensify gripping onto the old and insistence that nothing change. You're going to know which is which by this. Are you uncomfortable because what's unfolding isn't cooperating with what you're trying to preserve? Or are you uncomfortable because you're in new territory and the new is really forcing a lot of the old to collapse? And that is causing grief. It is causing strife. It is causing rupture because you're having to learn new systems. If it's the first, that's shadow. If it's the second, that's light. Our connections, our identities, the structures of our lives at this time, they are supposed to be changing and evolving right now. And that's a great thing. But I understand for many of us, change is uncomfortable when it's not self-instigated. A lot of what we are seeing here is not necessarily self-instigated change, but it is demanded by our life to such a degree where if I don't change, the consequences are too great for staying the same. Okay. So again, talk to a coach, talk to a therapist who understands either your connection if you're struggling there or your history if you're struggling with past stuff. That's going to be a game changer at this full moon. Palace here has entered Pisces finally, and this is a saving grace energy for this lunation. It brings fortification and reinforcements to spiritually protective and grounding work at this time. This aspect is going to be very supportive for the divine feminine energies uh, throughout the next 28 days. But also, it's going to start to be supportive to the divine masculine energies as we get into the second, third, and fourth week of February. Okay. Whatever you can do to ground and protect yourself is going to go a long way in helping you navigate this transition point in the field. Spiritually protective work, like spirit release therapy. Made for Love does this. Charlotte from Happy Twins does this. Erin and Aditi does this. If you do this, drop it in the comments. Let us know where we can find you. For some reason, links aren't supported. I made links available in my comment section, but for whatever reason, they still don't work. So thanks, YouTube. Just let us know what we can Google or look up on Instagram to get in touch with you. And people who need you will. Okay. Ella and Michaela, who run the Skio machine at Return to One Quantum Healing, they can also be very supportive for spiritual protection and grounding work. Spiritually protective work goes a long time. A long time. Goes a long way at this time. And it gets an extra boost from this planetary placement. So be sure to take advantage of this aspect while it's active these next 28 days. And lastly, for the divine feminine energy, we see Juno in opposition to Jupiter. And this moves the counterparts into an aspect astrologers call, like I said, the opposition, and out of the aspect called the inconjunct, which is a no conversation, a non-conversation between the energies. Non-conversations literally are exactly that. There's no planetary support supporting communication of any type, good or bad, harmonious or easy. The oppositional aspect does support communication, but it's inharmonious. You may discover with this energy through interactions, watching behaviors, conversations, where you and your counterpart are just misaligned at this time. And that's going to help. It's actually meant to help to be able to see the misalignment, lets you know where the growth is. Okay. It's going to take a bit of balancing in order to have harmony here. It's both energies being at odds or poles, so to speak. The divine feminine energy sits in the sign that deals with structure, boundaries, tradition, continuity, safety. Jupiter, the divine masculine energy, is in the sign that deals with emotions, families, mothers, this sort of thing. And so, and Jupiter is retrograde at that. So there can be a sense that the connection is there, it's active, but it's not harmonious. It's not on the same page for varying so many different reasons, depending upon you and where you're at within yourself, and you and where you're at with your counterpart. The most obvious will be the kind that impacts those who have connections in the workplace. Juno is in the sign of the workplace, or who are doing any sort of family work. You have kids, you're raising kids, you're a mom. Your counterpart is a mom. Your counterpart is raising kids. This sort of thing. As a collective, the expression of these energies can make it challenging to bring structure to the connection, as the divine feminine energetic field between the two of you wants structure. Juno likes structure in Capricorn. She likes tradition. She likes things to be established and official. However, the divine masculine energy is in the sign of emotions. That's Cancer over here. And is retrograde on to boot on top of that. And so for some, that may be signaling a withdrawal. For others, that may be a review of the past. And still for others, that may be a whole holding on to the connection the way it was, or an emotional state as it is. There can also be mother issues just showing up here of varying different types. Connections with your own mother, connections with your kids if you are a mother, these sorts of things. Um, Connections with a your children's mother if you and that if their mother and you are separated, right? This sort of thing. Challenges, reviews of these sorts of things, going back to the past to deal with the structure of these sorts of things. Alimony, child support, parenting rights, all of these things are part of what this energy is bringing to the table. So take it as it applies to your circumstance specifically. Notice how you may be, what I want to encourage us all is to notice how both energies can be playing out personally in your own field. It's also playing out personally in your counterpart's field, where the emotions and the structure of the connection are at odds in this energy. That can be not just you and another person being at odds, that could be you within yourself having mixed feelings. And I talk a lot about that because of the way the Leo full moon is structured. It brings that into conversation. And that's mostly what I'm seeing here is internal conflict more than interpersonal conflict, but the interpersonal conflict is certainly a feature of this opposition as well. The energy here is one where it will take both a willingness to let the other person have their process without making it about you, and where it's accessible, a conversation about what is clear, what is knowable about what matters to each person. That can go a long way if there's interpersonal conflict, interpersonal challenges here. Okay. While you may not be able to meet one another's needs right now, this aspect can allow you to both understand each other, why the other person's doing what they're doing, what it is that they need in order to follow their own impetus for self-fulfillment. That clarity is going to go a long way in the establishment of compassion and mutual support in the connection. Where conversation can happen, where it can't, it's okay to just focus on yourself and what you need, okay? Let's talk about the divine masculine energy fields. We see Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. There's a simmering down of the crisis and intensity to change energy in the divine masculine energy fields now that Jupiter has retrograded back to the mid degrees of Cancer here. It's at the 17th degree and is no longer in a tight sextile with Uranus there in third dimensional earth sign of Taurus. The energy is still at work, but the pressure isn't as intense. The movement isn't as dramatic. We have greater opportunities to move the energy at a pace that is integratable on the front end rather than something we need to digest in the aftermath of extreme change on the back end. Nevertheless, the energy is still intense. Changes for most will be emotional and internal. That's the Jupiter retrograde in Cancer part. With a physical 3D and cellular realignment component, that is the Uranus in Taurus part. So if there have been any like physical purges, you've maybe been guided to do a detox since November, December, this is a big piece of why this Jupiter retrograde and communication with Uranus at the tail end of Taurus, this sort of need to catch the body up with the emotional revelations and newness that's showing up with Jupiter in Cancer. That is a big piece of what we're all collectively experiencing. Okay. Now, I've covered this aspect extensively in the last several lunar updates for twin flames because there is something about this that is catalyzing, I want to be clear, fast, radical, and dramatic change between counterparts, specifically coming through the divine masculine energetic field. Again, look for this energy within yourself before you look for it outside of yourself in another person. But if you want to take a deeper dive on it, go back to the twin flame lunar updates of November and December to better understand what's changing, how it's changing, how fast it can change, and how to handle that change. Because this is expediting change and connections in the masculine energetic fields quickly. And so if you are feeling like, yo, something changed here, but you don't know what it is, go check those out. Semi-sextile Jupiter here to the full moon there in Leo. Now, this makes everything that I said in the Lightworker energy update that much more applicable to Jupiter and to the divine masculine energy fields. We're going to be feeling this full moon intensely in a way that shows up with regard to our needs and values at this time. The impetus to self-honor, the drive towards self-respect, the value on self-sovereignty cannot be overstated here. It is an energy that is going to push us all in that direction. It's just important to examine, is this coming from shadow? Is this coming from light? Does my self-sovereignty and self-honoring require the degradation of another person? Of course not. You're here. Why would it do that? Or for somebody else to suffer, for me to be sovereign, right? There are ways for your sovereignty to actually liberate other people in its process, right? And there's a difference in the way, how can I put this? Me moving into sovereignty might hurt your feelings, but it's also going to free you too. And so releasing being over concerned about somebody's hurt feelings in service of their liberation is actually what this is asking us for, as opposed to the opposite, which is I'm going to compromise my sovereignty to save your feelings and then call that being the better, the bigger person. That's not what that is. That's being a martyr. And that's not the path to union. This energy requires sovereignty on both sides. as we move toward the next major union window in 2028 in Libra, which is the sign of equality, fairness, balance, justice, equity, equal counterparts. You're not going to be able to be a martyr energy and still hold the framework required for union. Okay. So I wanted to make that distinction really explicit because the astrological pressure to come out of martyrdom frameworks, wherever they are in your life, maybe you feel beholden to, somebody who's needy at work, a needy neighbor, a needy family member. This is where supporting them into their self-sovereignty really facilitates and liberates the space you need to hold the frequency required for the next union window to serve you. Okay. So, Leo full moon. Leo's all about sovereignty, joy. Okay, now we see Jupiter here, square the shaman's asteroid there in Libra. This energy is in concert with the square to Ceres in Aries up here. Notice how Ceres is also speaking to Juno. Shaman's asteroid is also speaking to Juno, and that constitutes a cardinal grand cross that the counterparts are locked into at this full moon. The tension between masculine and feminine energies within ourselves can also show itself with the counterpart. It opens up growth cycles that can be impactful to the interactions you're having. So, for example, you can find that there is difficulty closing out a cycle in your own personal identity. That's Ceres and Aries. Got to close out certain cycles, certain behaviors, certain actions. You may be having difficulty with that. Or you could be having difficulty integrating something you learned a long time ago in relationship, but now need to apply in the connection. That's Shaman's asteroid in Libra, the sign of partnership and collaboration. What did you learn? What's the medicine you have retrieved that the connection now needs? Because they are in opposition to one another and both square to each counterpart, tricky, 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 in a good way. It forces us to start to look at, okay, so something's got to give. And the only place that there's flexibility is within me, right? Because I make the system, I break the system, right? I am the one who is the author of my reality. So where can you facilitate flexibility for change? How can we create what we need in order to let go of what's no longer serving and step into something new? I'm going to be honest, this kind of energy intention in the counterparts fields is an energy that I can see really demands a lot of faith and a lot of trust. And I know that if you're here on a YouTube channel for these kinds of connections, that may have been something that has been hard to come by. It's been hard to establish within yourself and hold on to. And it's not a bad thing, it's not an indictment of character. But what I want to say is that if you change at this time, it sets the stage for the connection to change in a really beautiful way in the fullness of time. Okay. So I encourage you, make the changes that you know need to be made. I don't know what that is. Some of you need to sell a house. I've talked to so many of you who need to sell property and move on with your lives. Um, some of you really need to get a job, like any job at this point. Like it's getting dire in your circumstances. Others of you have known your job is killing you, soul sucking. You really need to leave it. And still others of you are aware that there's way too much codependency between you and your children's other parent in ways that aren't healthy for your connection. And it's time to establish some new boundaries, some new structures to your family system so that there's room for you to be happy too. So I don't know what it is. It's going to be different strokes for different folks. Whatever it is, you're going to be challenged by this Leo full moon to honor it, to find it and to honor it. Um, because both sides, divine masculine and divine feminine, are calling for that change. And again, my encouragement for you is to trust it. Trust that change for yourself. Trust that if you make the change, if you open the field, if you open the portal, the connection will follow you through it. Okay? All right, so that's what I have there. Um, Jupiter retrograde in Cancer is demanding a lot of emotional excavation work. And I've been talking about this since Jupiter got into Cancer, but especially since Jupiter has been retrograde, where misalignment can feel persistent or unsettling as it reveals what higher alignment in connection actually requires at this time. Because it's different now than it has been in the last decade. Since December of this past December, literally like 30 days ago, December, there's been a shift where connection now requires more alignment to love than it has ever required in order to stabilize in the third dimension. Where there is any sort of codependence in the connection, I am seeing in what I've been receiving in the channeled messages for divine counterparts, I'm seeing that connections are collapsing under codependence right now. They are, for whatever reason, something in the energy. And I'm going to be honest, it's specific to the divine masculine fields, whether, no matter how you identify gender-wise, we all have both energies. Something in the divine masculine energetic field is pulling out and like pulling up stakes, pulling up the roots of codependency. I think this is like a shadow side of Cancer thing that is being demanded of all of us to root out and weed out of our lives as Jupiter has been in opposition to Pluto in communication, and that's power, personal power, in communication with Chiron and Eris. This deals with wounds to identity, ego, and rejection. This sort of thing where we've been using relationship to fill in for nervous system regulation, using relationships or connection to um, be the, sort of ballast by which we direct the ship. We're actually being asked to detach from the person and reorient true north to love and let alignment follow from there. Okay. Um, and so, yeah, things are shifting rapidly in connection. Like I said, this Jupiter-Uranus thing is really bringing it through the divine masculine energetic fields more than anything I've seen before. And that crossover into preparation for the next union window that happened in December is a key feature of why this is happening. Because, like I said, that next union window, it shows up in Libra, and Libra is balanced partnership between two who are equals, not one who is learning to become an equal. We have to step into it from that place. So that's why the last union window stars are so, I mean, God, the way God designed these stars, I mean, this was mastery level, I don't know, geometry, astronomy, and mathematics, because the last union window took place in Aries. Ever since 2023, 2022, the focus has been cultivating that identity within self that can stand on its own. Next union window focuses on now that you are a true self that can stand on one's own, how do we stand together in strength and love? So this energy of this Leo full moon zooming back into this micro moment that's part of a series of micro moments that lead to that moment. This is really about breaking those cycles, liberating yourself from those places of codependence. Okay? Doing the hard thing at this time. So I love it. It's all beauty, it's all love. We're all moving toward that place. But yeah, full moons like this, new moons like the last one, they can be complicated and uncomfortable making those changes, even though they're good changes. Okay. We see this trine to Nessus in Pisces here, and this is creating a sense of intense focus on all of the themes discussed already. Like you're likely already feeling these themes in your energy before this got published. Hopefully, this is providing a lot of confirmation for you. And we also see a square to Ceres and Chiron and Eris in Aries here. Okay. This energy stays with us through mid-year in the divine masculine energetic fields until Jupiter leaves Cancer and moves into Leo, along with it'll hit in opposition to Pluto a second time in May, June, July, and the first part of August. Now, this energy operates as a great correction and humbler in our divine masculine energy fields. It reveals where we may have been cavalier about the connection, cavalier about mission, cavalier about identity as a divine feminine or as a divine masculine or as someone who's, quote, done all their work. And it's all up to the other person now. I see a lot of that, those spiritual bragging rights in the comments that are actually masquerading as yeah, spiritual bragging rights, but it's really just rejection underneath. And so, where there's two people on the dance floor, there's two people needing to do work. It's as simple as that. If you really done, then be done. I mean, there's plenty of other YouTube channels, 8 billion people on the planet for you to fall in love with. There's no need to haul up into Allie's comments, ASO's comments, my comments, and tell us how evolved you are. We don't care. We don't know. We live in our own lives with our own problems. Nobody else in the comments gets anything out of that. So this is really going to bring a lot of this sort of like, okay, I'm still in this. My heart is still in this. So where is my work? Universe, God, divine, higher self, show me. Show me where, where my part of the dance has evolved to now. And this is a good thing. I think this is really going to help us collectively continue to anchor to love and then act from love together. And I think that that is going to move connections into third dimensional union very quickly once we get through this bit of ego reformation that the divine masculine energy is bringing into all of our fields at this time, which is good. It's healthy. We all need that from time to time. A little bit of spiritual humble pie uh, keeps the soul evolving, keeps the spirit growing. Okay. So that's what I have for us at this Leo full moon. If you heard something that resonates, definitely hit that like, share, and subscribe button. It is my honor to be with you and walk through these energies with you. And know that if it's not easy for you, it ain't easy for me. We in this together. These energies are kicking my little patootie too. So, I'm just the messenger. I'm doing the best I can with the messages as I get them. If you want some more messages, you can find those over on the podcast that I did with Lauren. Once again, that's the Master Your Mind, Business, and Life podcast. Uh, you'll find the link to this below this video, also on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Music, Pandora, and wherever you get your podcasts. And I look forward to seeing you at the next lunar update. Much love to all of us as we move through these very, very challenging energies. Please stay connected with somatic practices, nervous system regulation, self-care, grace, self-forgiveness, self-love. No one is out here doing it perfect. We're all feeling awkward, out of sorts, and challenged by the way the world is changing so rapidly. And our lives are changing too. So, grace for yourself, grace for others, and know that we are all ascending together, even if we aren't all ascending simultaneously. I love you all so, so, so much. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. I am honored to do this with you, and I can't wait to talk to you at the next lunation. Take great care, and bye for now.